So punishment is something something of contention that people have. That why are different punishments carried out in Sharia law? One of them is the punishment of adultery. That someone, when they object, they will say, can you imagine in a modern state that when a punishment is carried out for adultery, that a person be stoned in a public area? And some of the images that we saw, dreadful images of ISIS, what they did is they would crucify people and place them on the road, and disregarding the fact that the first caliph, who was 𝗬𝗵𝘆𝗸𝗵 𝗦𝗵𝘆𝗸𝗵, he prohibited the displaying of heads, severed heads, in public areas. You'll find in a 𝗦𝗵𝘆𝗸𝗵 that the very first caliph of Islam prohibited this action, yet the ignorant people who claim to have superimposed Sharia law, they would display the decapitated heads of people's bodies on the roads and streets. So how do we reconcile this with the fact that the punishment for adultery is carried out with stoning? People will say this is a barbaric law or an outdated biblical law which has no room in the modern age. Firstly, when it comes to punishment, punishments are not related to whether they are outdated or outmoded ways of punishing. Punishments have been around from ancient times. So prison, for instance, is an outdated mode of punishment where people are placed in prisons. Even though it's an ancient way of punishing, it still is carried out today. Death penalty is the same. In America, when someone is electrocuted on the chair, an electric chair, no one or very few people would say this is barbaric, or the injection that is delivered to kill someone. So someone will say, how can you stone someone in the public? Firstly, the punishment of stoning, the conditions that are needed for stoning to be carried out are so stringent that it would be almost impossible for those conditions to be met. Like theft, meaning if you count the number of amputations that were carried out during the caliphate, the true caliphate, which was abolished just over 100 years ago, the number of hand amputations that were carried out were very few. So it is also almost impossible for the law to be carried out. In the time of the Prophet, peace be upon him, the law was carried out only 3 times, stoning. In all 3 cases, the person who had carried out adultery, who had committed adultery, came forward themselves in order to admit the sin, meaning they wanted the law administered upon them. It was not the Prophet ﷺ seeking out people in order to see, spying on people, which is prohibited, because the law itself states that if someone is witnessed doing adultery or fornication, the man and the woman, when they are carrying out this action, the penetration of the private organs must be seen and witnessed by 4 individuals. If any one of the account differs from the other, then those 4 people are punished. Meaning, where could you find this? Even if a person went to a qadi and they said they saw a man and a woman naked committing that act, that would be insufficient evidence. And the person who brings such a case would be punished himself. Meaning, the very carrying out of the law is very difficult. So this law would firstly count as something which we would say is a violation of public modesty. So public modesty, that if someone decides to commit adultery in a public area openly, that the penetration of the private organs is witnessed by 4 people, this would be a violation of public order, and therefore the punishment is carried out. But very rarely, even in Western society, in America today, it is prohibited for women to show their nipples in public. And nudity is still prohibited even in many parts of the Western world where people are claiming total freedom, that women are punished for this. So there are laws in the Islamic law, strict laws, in order to safeguard the family bond, that a person who is married, if he is caught carrying out an act of public obscenity to such a degree that 4 people can witness the penetration of the private organs, then the death penalty is carried out. Now someone will say, okay, we accept that this is very rarely found, and if it is, how can you allow and permit stoning of someone to death in public? The response is that a punishment can remain the same from age to age and time to time, but the packaging can change. Meaning a packaging of the bread that we consume today is the same bread that people consumed during the Roman period, but the packaging changes. Likewise, punishments. When punishments are carried out, the packaging of the punishment can change. What is meant by public arena it does not mean that the city centre becomes a place of stoning someone to death. It can be a private quarter of the government, an open compound, where only certain selected people from the public are invited to observe and witness the punishment. It doesn't mean that it needs to be open to the entire public. But secondly, and most vitally, a major point that is missed out when this punishment is mentioned, that if 4 witnesses observe the act of adultery being committed with total obscenity in public, and it is proven to a qadi, a judge, even when the punishment is carried out, if the people start stoning, and as soon as the stoning is administered, and the person decides to flee, because the person is not tied down, they decide to flee, the qadi, the judge, stops the punishment because a doubt has arisen. What is that doubt? That the person may be running away due to a certain reason. And therefore the qadi apprehends the person and a retrial is carried out. This is in fact from the guidance of the Prophet ﷺ, that in his lifetime a person was stoned after coming forward to be stoned himself. And the Prophet ﷺ carried out some checks regarding the sanity of the individual. When it was proven that the person was sane, when he ran away, and the people chased him, the Prophet ﷺ condemned them for chasing after him, saying that maybe he would have refuted the claim, saying that he did not carry out the act of adultery. So this punishment for adultery is one of the contested laws that people bring out regarding Sharia law.